begin with the 5-element ritual, which is acknowledging the earth. As we sink into the earth, we rise with the power of the earth. Sweeping the arms wide was the element of water, and raising the arms up towards the sky is the element of air. Bringing the palms together is AKASHA, being connected with the divine consciousness, and bringing the palms together down past the heart is the element of fire. So each time we play the form, we begin by acknowledging the benefits of the 5 elements. The next movement is parting the clouds, and here we're acknowledging the element of air. As we breathe in and raise our arms towards the sky, we then imagine that we can push out and part the clouds with our hands as we take our arms to the side. And because this form was played facing the Himalaya mountains, which were considered sacred mountains, this was called parting clouds to east and west. The next movement of the form is where the arms rise and we part the clouds to the north and south. So pushing forward and back with the arms, still acknowledging the element of air, which represents vitality and energy. And just swinging the arms in opposite directions. We then move into dove spreads its wings, which is the element of fire, opening the heart, the center of love and compassion and creativity, and giving that love to the world. And learning to open up our hearts, to become more creative, to become more loving. From the dove spreads its wings, we move into just circling the hips. And although this seems like a simple little exercise, this is a very sophisticated movement. As you roll, the femur in the hip socket is promoting synovial fluid, which is the lubricant of the hip. It's a substance that feeds the cartilage and takes the debris out of the hip. So this is an excellent exercise, even if you've been sitting for long periods of time, to stand up and just circle the hips, first in one direction and then in the other. From circling the hips, we move into the spinning of a wheel. This shape is as though you're hanging onto the rim of a big wheel and you're spinning it first to the right. And as you spin the wheel to the right, you bring in the element of earth, rolling the wheel into the earth. And then you roll up and roll the wheel in the opposite direction, rolling from the earth, the first element, into AKASHA, the last element. And as you roll the wheel, you think about moving from the earth through all the elements and ending in AKASHA. From this movement we move into what's known as spinning bowls. And it's called spinning bowls because you imagine that you have a bowl of water in each hand and you mustn't spill the water. So the palm always stays towards the ceiling. And this works into the wrist and the shoulder as we make this shape. We then separate the hands so that each hand moves independently of the other, still making the same shape, but perfectly synchronized so there is half a movement between each hand. So the left brain has to operate the right hand and the right brain has to operate the left hand, and this keeps the movement synchronized but also forces the brain to have a conversation. So the left hemisphere of the brain has to speak with the left hemisphere of the brain so that they can keep these movements totally synchronized. From this we move into the flying goose, and this gives us an opportunity to breathe in as much as we possibly can the element of air. And as we sink all the way down as far as we can, we compress the lungs by crossing the arms and squeezing the ribs tightly together. From this position we then inhale as much as possible, lift and rise and expand, taking in as much energy as possible. From the flying goose, we move into cloud hands. And as we twist from one side to the other, we wave our hands like clouds. The idea being to rotate the spine as much as possible in either direction, to release all the tension in the spine. So as we twist the spine, we create the mental image of water. So the spine is becoming soft and fluid and as graceful as the element of water. And as we spin from side to side, we release all the tension along the spine, so the spine becomes as supple as a snake. As we bring the hands through as though we're scooping water, raising that water up towards the sky. This is the element of fire and creativity. Being as creative as you can with the shape of your spine and the scooping of the water. Using your imagination as much as you possibly can. From scooping water, we move into a beautiful movement, flowing like water, pushing hands. And as we roll from one side to the other, we realize that we need to roll the weight from the heel to the toe, across to the opposite heel, and out to the opposite toe, and that we actually control all movement in our body from the soles of our feet. We need to connect right down into the soles of our feet to understand the movement of our arms and the movement of our hands. Movement of push hands, we move into the swaying tree. And this is about creating a line from the ankle to the knee, to the hip, to the shoulder, to the ear, to the elbow, to the wrist. And keeping that straight line, swaying like a large tree in the wind. And as we sway, it stretches through the side all the way down into the heel. Feeling that stretch that begins in the heel and flows all the way up into the hands. And we begin to connect the body as we sway from the element of earth on the right, sinking into the earth, and then flowing from the earth through the various elements back into the element of AKASHA. Realizing that to flow from earth, we need to flow through water, fire, air to reach AKASHA. And from AKASHA back to earth, we have to flow from AKASHA, air, fire, water into earth. It's not simply just moving quickly from one element to another. We need to flow through them all. From the swaying tree, we go to rowing a boat. And I like to think that I'm rowing a boat to the middle of the lake. And as I row the boat, I breathe in the element of air and I energize and revitalize so I can row the boat. And I row that boat to the middle of the lake. When I've reached the middle of the lake, I need to row back to shore So once again, it's breathing in as much energy and vitality as I can from the air and rowing the boat back to shore. Once I've rowed the boat back to shore, I move into a beautiful movement known as gazing at the moon. And I watch the moon as it rises up into the sky and sinks down towards the other horizon. And then I watch it as it rises up from that horizon and rolls back down. As I roll up to the right, I'm rolling the moon into the element of earth and realizing once again that to get to AKASHA on the other side, I need to flow like water, energize with air, and be very creative. Finally rolling to the left into the element of AKASHA. I begin to realize that all the elements are combined, that within each element are aspects of the other elements, and that I need to apply them all. Even when I feel that I'm in just one, there are aspects of the others. Gazing at the moon, I move into a beautiful movement known as playing with the waves. And it's very playful as I flow like water, turning my spine into this soft, fluid movement of running my hands up the face of the wave, down the face of the wave, and up the face of the wave, and down the face of the wave, feeling the fluidity of the water flowing into me through my hands and rolling my spine up as though it's fluid, graceful, just like water. From playing with the waves, I move into a lovely movement known as the archer draws his bow. And in this movement, I feel as though I plant my feet into the earth and I draw the energy of the earth through the soles of my feet with each breath. I become connected with the earth. I draw the energy from the earth, become as powerful and as strong and as balanced as the earth. From playing the archer, I move into silk thread. And it's as though my leg is a puppet, and as I lift my leg, I'm drawing it up with the action of the arm. So I begin to notice that as my arm moves, the shoulder directs the hip, the elbow directs the knee, the wrist directs the ankle, and the fingers and toes begin to mimic each other, trailing on the way down and trailing on the way up. Each movement is making me reconnect with my entire body. Even if I'm sitting in a chair, I can be playing this movement, just reconnecting. And once again, feeling the element of earth under my feet as I push and I lift, flowing like water, energizing with air, being as creative as I can to reach AKASHA. Exhale, softening back into the earth. The next movement is known as sun and moon because I've been physically active. I've created heat in the body, which is known as the sun. And I want to draw the element of water which resides in the pelvic bowl up into the element of fire to cool the fire. And although this isn't a physical exercise, this is a mental exercise asking the body to become cool and calm. And finally come to the last movement, which is just reconnecting the entire body by asking all the energy to follow the palms of the hands. And you draw the hands up the front of the thighs, the front of the body, as though you're drawing all the energy in your body up into your mind where it can be expressed. And then asking it to flow from the mind back down and settle like water in the pelvic bowl, to be expressed as movement that is fluid and graceful. And this brings you to the conclusion of the 5 elements, the gift that's contained within the box of the 5 element form. As I play this form, I begin to understand that the element of earth is contained in my body from the soles of my feet into my legs. This is where my strength and my power comes from. I begin to realize that the element of water is contained in my hips and pelvic bowl all the way to my navel. The element of water is represented in our bodies from the pelvis and the hips to the diaphragm. And we begin to realize that all movement in the body comes from this area. That although the legs are the foundation and the strength and the support, that all movement comes from the pelvis. And we need to keep this area open and available to us so that we can move effortlessly from one place to another. We begin to realize that the element of air is contained in our body from our diaphragm to the roof of our nostrils, and that we need to expand and open this entire area to be as energetic as we possibly can be. It's been measured that we breathe at 1/9 of our vital capacity, and we have a fraction of the energy and vitality that we could have. So by learning to breathe, we can open up the body, make it more energetic and more vital. I begin to realize that the element of fire is contained in my solar plexus and expressed in my heart. That I can be creative in my love and compassion. I can be creative from the very moment that I wake in the morning throughout the entire day. And that the element of AKASHA is contained in my mind, which resides in my skull, and it is the thoughts of my mind that disconnect me from everything and everybody. It is the judgment of my mind that separates me from everybody else and actually leaves me standing alone. And if I can change the way that I think and perceive the world and everything in it, then I can begin to reconnect to everything and everybody in the world. The feeling of being separate is not what comes from the outer world and the people it contains, but what comes from your inner mind and the way you think. So by playing this form in its entirety, you begin to acknowledge not only the 5 elements, but where they are in your body, how they express themselves,